Our topic today, it's more building competitiveness, but more focused on building the trade-related infrastructure. When we speak infrastructure, in many countries, one would think more of the role of the state. Of course, the state build the road, build the port, expand the airport, enlarge the dry dock, the dry container port. Yes, but it's not the end of the world. If the government cannot, respond to that, should we stop there and then just look at the sky and hope that, the infrastructure will come? No. And that's why the role of the private sector, in fact, it's private sector who trade. So if you have a factory, you invest money, and you have a buyer, you have order, ready to be shipped. Would you sit there and wait? Well, it's okay to lose my contract because by next year the government will have that toll road to link me to the port. No, I don't think you will wait. Private sector will not wait. You will find your own scheme. You will find your own ways.
Why private sector in this? Clearly, it's beyond the capacity of the government to get into this development of production-related infrastructure on its own, primarily because it's not very high on its development agenda. As Ifana was saying, the social agenda, the other priorities assume other developmental projects assume top priority, and trade-related infrastructure generally is given a secondary priority. And above all, it is in the interest of the trade to get involved in building infrastructure. As he says, you cannot wait. Therefore, it is in the interest of the trade to trade. When I say private sector, I'm talking about trade also being part of private sector to build the infrastructure. For example, Indian textile industry, more than 75% of our fabric is produced by micro, small and medium enterprise, which are small, isolated, fragmented. And their associations generally are in the nature of lobbying, going around requesting the government for certain incentives. Therefore, although there is a requirement of the industry, there is preparedness of the industry to get involved in development of infrastructure. It's beyond their capacity to get into, and governments have delivery limitations. And therefore, you require an effective institution to facilitate. Now, how do you get the industry? We are talking about micro, small, medium enterprise. How do you get them organized? How do you get them represented? And the solution for this, the model which we are doing, is a cluster-based approach. So each micro, small, medium enterprise is very small on its own. Associations are weak. Therefore, bring these enterprises together in the form of a cluster. And that cluster being represented in the form of a company, a special purpose vehicle company. So when we are talking about trade-related infrastructure, that can be easily be broken down into sector-specific. Within sector-specific, there are commercially identifiable, viable, or may not be viable with full commercial funding, but there are specific projects. The model which we are trying to do in India for trade-related infrastructure is essentially government-industry partnership facilitated by the institution like us, industry participating in the form of clusters, and the vehicle for participation is a special purpose vehicle company.
I'll begin by giving you a brief background about Durban Investment Promotion Agency, or DIPA for short, the organization which I do work for. It was in 2001 that DIPA was set up. It was based on the City Best Practices Commission. It was set up as a public-private partnership with 50-50 funding from the municipality, which is the local government, and the private sector, which was represented by the chambers of commerce and so forth. Its main mandate was to bring in investment into the city of Durban to develop overall economic growth, overall economic development. How do we get the product from the shop floor to the ship? And how do we get it from the ship to the shelf? And the whole link here is from shop floor, ship to shelf, and smoothing up that pipeline by making it easier to move that product seamlessly as far as possible. But apart from that, governments are increasingly, because they are spending public money, under scrutiny. They're always under debate. Every decision they take is blown out of proportion by the press. It's also bound by legislation and said that you can't spend public money in a certain way and you can spend public money only in a certain way, and so forth and so on. Besides that, obviously, I think the government money is under pressure. There are a lot of crying babies which are crying for the government's attention. And these are typically programs like poverty alleviation. In South Africa's case, it's HIV and AIDS, it's education, it's health spending, and so forth and so on. So obviously the question is, where will those rands or where will those dollars go? And infrastructure is a cash guzzler. It needs in one single shot large chunks of money. Information infrastructure is as equally important as much as roads and ports and bridges. And information is the bridge which basically builds the gap between where the opportunity is and where the action is required.
First, of course, it has been said here that it's not only physical infrastructure which counts, but also some infrastructure related to information. I will go even deeper and say that legal framework and environment conditions, regulations, business climate and regulations are essential also. The capacity to deliver public goods and the efficiency to deliver public goods are essential. The capacity to deliver services for the companies inside the country as also essential factor for competitiveness and going international. So therefore I will suggest that the soft infrastructure issues are essential in the same way as physical infrastructure is. But one should take also into consideration the fact that this soft infrastructure is related to human resources and is related to social values, and I will try to develop this subject more. It is essential for the public sector, which will be the first role I can see of the private sector in this infrastructure. One can say how the private sector will go into legislation or into efficient delivery of public goods, and the answer is yes. The first role of the private sector should be to advocacy, to make advocacy and to make lobby and to represent interests of the business community towards the authorities and towards the governments, and together in dialogue to try to shape a better legislation, a better regulatory framework, a better business environment. Also better efficiency of delivery of essential public goods like health, education.
The bridge between the private and the public sector. And I think there's a very clear role. For a successful marriage, both partners have to work on the marriage.